For a startup activewear brand, copying an existing successful brand may seem like a shortcut, but for an activewear brand, it can put your brand dead in the water before you even get the chance to succeed. Although it may seem like a shortcut, there's a hidden cost to copying a successful brand and just simply slapping your name or your logo on the similar type of strategy. We call this the copycat tax. This is the tax that happens when you emulate and you copy what another brand is doing. Perhaps you see their visuals, you see their product, you see the fabrics that they're picking, the website, they see the entire collection, the messaging, and you think to yourself that the fastest way to succeed is to do what's already been done. The challenge is that when people are now looking at your product, you don't only borrow the strategy of the brand that you're copying, you also borrow their comparison. When you look too similar to an existing brand that's already on the market, a customer is no longer just looking at your product in isolation. They're comparing you to a brand that they already know, and for a new activewear brand that hasn't been able to carve out its own identity, that can be a very dangerous place to start. So on today's episode, we'll be looking at the hidden cost of the copycat tax and how you can avoid this as a startup activewear brand and what you should do instead. So without further ado, my name is Shadi. I'm the co-founder and creative director of FittDesign, the world's first sportswear design agency. And over the last 10 years, I've helped literally thousands of brands to go from an idea to a physical product in under 30 days. And I've learned the repetitive patterns of failure that activewear brands that copy existing brands will fall into. So I'm going to give you guys the number one way to avoid it and what you should do instead. So why should you avoid the copycat tax? It's all well and good to say that if an existing strategy works, then if I implement it into my own brand, then I should achieve a similar level of success. But the first thing that we need to understand is that copying ultimately makes the customer compare you and your brand in your early stage to a brand that is already at an advanced stage, a brand that you can't beat yet. So it's all well and good to copy Lululemon, Alo, Young LA, Gymshark, look at their fabrics, look at their checkout flow, look at their reminder flow, look at the fabrics that they're using, the colors. But the customer, especially if that copy is too apparent, is not going to be asking themselves, do I like this? They're going to be asking themselves, should I buy this instead of a brand that I already trust? And a new brand doesn't have that trust yet. So when you copy too closely, you're not making your product feel safer. If anything, you're forcing your customer to compare your product to an already existing and safer option. And that's the first copycat tax that you're paying. Number two is that most founders are copying the look that they see, but they don't understand the underlying strategy as to why it works. And this is where the mistake really starts, because if you see something that works with another brand, you think to yourself, okay, if I have a success because of brand XYZ, because of this black set, you think to yourself, oh, simple sells. But what you don't understand is why they picked that specific color. Perhaps it was a seasonal thing. Perhaps that specific color scheme had already worked because the brand had set up years of trust and years of track record with their existing customer base. You may look at a brand that has neutral colors and think, oh, neutral colors are the way to go. But maybe those specific colors will work because that brand is reaching out to a specific customer and is catering to a specific type of lifestyle. Perhaps they've already covered their core colors and now they're moving into a new season, and neutral colors are a way to bolster their existing brand. You might look at a product and you might look at a specific pricing and think to yourself, oh, Lululemon or Alo or Rhone have higher pricing, so I should also include higher pricing in my product to create a additional perceived value in my product. But maybe that brand had years of foundational ability to build trust, to build fabric technology, to build marketing, to justify that price. Just because that price worked in the end stage of what you're looking at doesn't necessarily mean it'll work in the beginning stage of where you're currently at. What you're copying essentially is the decoration of the brand. A big brand can release a very basic product and people will call it timeless. If you release a basic product, they'll either say that you are copying or that you're uninspired. It's the same product, but it has a different context in there. So before copying anything, what you need to ask is, why did this actually work for them? And then from there, reverse engineer it. Was it the product? Was it the audience? Was it the timing that they launched that product? Was it the way that they communicated it to the end user? And if you can't answer those questions clearly, you're not using inspiration. You're simply guessing, and guessing is what leads to the mistakes. Number 3 is that copying makes your price harder to believe and harder to justify. And this is where copying will start to lose you real money and will hurt your bottom line. When your product looks almost identical or too similar to an existing brand, what customers start to do, especially if they're price sensitive, is they'll compare. They will look at it like a static set. They will ask themselves, if I'm already paying this price for this brand, which I like, why does yours cost just as much? What have you done in terms of innovating, in terms of adding value, in terms of adding something different than I can already get from a brand that I've transacted with and that I've already trusted? Why should I risk buying from your brand when I can buy from one that I can already know? And that's the difference. The problem here is that if the difference isn't clear between your product and their product, your price, even though it's going to be the same price, will feel higher because the justification isn't there. And the difference between price and cost is the price is what you pay, but the cost is ultimately what you give. And if you have trust, if you have value built up with the customer, that cost is less, which makes the price feel justified. It's all an equation there. You simply do not have that trust, so the cost of customers engaging with you is much higher. This is why a lot of new brands will end up discounting way earlier than they should, because they try to artificially bring that price down so that the cost doesn't seem as high. And that only creates a difficult spiral where they see discounting as a way to get more customers, but then customers are still comparing them to another brand. And not only are you now making less money, but customers are now thinking you're the cheap version of a product that they already like, and they still won't buy from you. It's the same reason that you see a lot of Amazon dupes become popular for a season, but they can't maintain that. It's because the underlying asset isn't the brand, isn't the product, it's nothing. There's no underlying asset that customers are buying into. They're just getting a cheaper version of a product that they already like. And this takes us on into number 4, which is copying attracts customers that are loyal to the look, not necessarily to the brand. And this is ever more applicable in the Amazon dupe context, because if a customer is going to buy, let's just say, a seamless scrunch legging, maybe ones that they've seen on navigation or on owner, what they're going for is the look. They're not loyal to the brand that they're buying from, to the dupe brand that they're buying from. They just want the look. And when the look that they want changes, they're gonna move away from your brand until you copy the next thing. So you're always behind. You're never gonna get the upside of being able to be at the beginning of a trend, be able to create value that others can extract because you're the one who's created the product. You understand the sizing, the fabric, the fit. So what customers will do is they may like a look, they might save your post, they might like the outfit, they might ask about the color, but they won't come back, because if they can get that same look somewhere else for cheaper, well, then they're not attached to your brand. What they want is that same look for the cheapest possible price. There's no way for you to differentiate yourself from someone else offering that same look. You don't have a clear customer in mind. You don't have a clear product role. Your product doesn't actually fill a void or a specific need in their life, simply other than, oh, it looks good. You don't have a clear point of view that differentiates you from other brands. You don't have a clear reason for your brand to be chosen again. And if customers only remember the aesthetic, your brand is replaceable. It's like Shein. Just put a new logo on it, slap it, call it a day. Number 5, and last but not least, is the better move for you as an activewear brand to benefit from the mistakes that other brands have made to get them to where they are today is not to steal the style, but to steal the principle, to reverse engineer why the big brands do what they do, and to make that relevant to your brand. Because you should absolutely study successful brands. This is part of building a smart brand, and avoid making the same mistakes that others have already done. But copying asks, how can we look exactly like them? Studying asks, what can we learn from what they're already doing that will work for us? So for example, if you look at a brand like Aloe and they're making activewear that feels like a lifestyle, and they build and curate that world around them, don't copy Aloe's exact styling, format, images, models. Instead ask, what lifestyle do our customers actually live in? Maybe your customer isn't going from Pilates to a cafe like Aloe. Maybe she's going from work to the gym. Maybe she's a power lifter. Maybe she wants modest coverage, that's her core goal. Maybe she wants gym wear that's less revealing. Maybe she wants activewear that specifically works for travel, errands, recovery, and that's how you use that inspiration properly. You're still tapping into that lifestyle aspect, but the specifics, the mechanics of what you implement are different depending on the context that you have. You take that principle and you translate it to your own customer. And if another brand has a strong product page, don't just copy the layout, the text, and everything in there and just put your logo on it. Ask yourself, what is that page solving in the customer journey? Is it reducing the sizing doubt? Are customers more likely to buy from this because it's clearer what and how the garment fits? Is it making the pricing easier to understand by justifying the fabric, justifying the details, justifying the customer reviews? Is it showing how the customers are doing in the products to build up that social trust? So, for example, if your customer is ultimately someone who values sizing reviews, who values clear product information, and you can tell this by looking at some of the brands that you're looking at. Reverse engineer your customer and then give them sizing reviews that are relevant to them. Maybe they care about how your product looks like in a variety of body types instead of specific body types. Maybe they care about having a video try on haul because they want to connect closer to the creator. Those contexts are important to you. So the underlying framework remains the same, but the implementation is different. And if you guys want to learn how you can get into the activewear space and build your first collection and avoid paying that heavy copycat tax, you can check the link in the description to apply to work with us one-on-one, and we'll get back to you within literally 5 minutes with a personalized production roadmap that can show you how we can take you from an idea to a physical sample that's perfect within 30 days. And guys, I say this from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of FittDesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.